That will be our guy, Dwayne. Watch this. Blake Griffin says something to Lloyd Pierce. That can tech. Another member of our family here, Vince Carter, says, well, that's not good enough, and then Blake is gone. And Dwayne Casey's response to that, hide the women and children.
Playoff push starts tonight. They obviously fought you tooth and nail to the end. What did you like about the way you guys were able to close it?
Well, they did, especially when you have your best player taken out of the game by two questionable technicals. I mean, I have never seen. You know, they found a way. I thought Reggie Jackson played as one of the most complete games in 34 minutes with no turnovers. I thought that was huge by him, having that type of. Thought he and Andre put the team on the shoulder and just carried us. John Lure hadn't played all year, but came in and found a way to contribute to winning. So, to all our guys' credit, they found a way to win an important game.
You mentioned Reggie Jackson, the 32 points, 8 assists, 0 turnovers. The only other two guards in Pistons history that have done that is Chauncey and Joe Dumars. But how about his last assist to Thon Maker? How big was that play?
It was big. He made the right basketball play, and sometimes that's a simple thing to do. And Thon had the wherewithal and whereabouts to knock down a shot. I don't know how many he made tonight, but he was struggling from the three-point line. But Reggie made good decisions. They were blitzing him. He found passes out of the blitz, didn't turn it over, which was huge.
Coach, I shouldn't have been back here, but unbelievable job from our guys. Thon hit a big shot. John came in and gave us great minutes. Reggie and Dre were great, as they have been. So, we'll take this win and move on.
Well rested for the back-to-back tomorrow, then?
Yeah, I got a lot of rest tonight. So,
Coach Casey said he'd never seen anything really like that before. Basically, he called it like our best player take it from us like that.
Yeah. Listen, I've got a lot of the texts that I've deserved. Those two tonight. I don't know about those.
Did you get any explanation?
No, none.
Like, how tough is that when you're not able to be out there to, not that they need encouragement every minute, but when you can't even be out there to talk with your guys and they isolate you back here, how tough is that to watch the end of a game like that?
It is tough, but like I said, I mean, we accepted accepted that challenge and rose to it, and guys were great. Guys were unbelievable. So it's a lot. It's a lot of. Who you talking about? Who you talking about?
Oh, Trey was trying to tell him when he tells him with a W. One more than 15 games.
Yeah.
How did with being
Now, I got to say, the way that was, I thought we had Dwayne going like Michael Douglas and falling down, or like Office Space, or training and just losing his mind.
And he better not get fined.
Dwayne was calm. Blake is laughing. Well, they got to win, so it makes it easy, even though they snuck out with it. For the Pistons, last year when the deal was made, got off to a good start. Then everything kind of went the other way, and it was a disappointment they didn't make the playoffs. What already has Coach Casey, obviously, who helped? You mentioned Siakam before, big reason for his growth.
Yeah.
What's he done already with the culture in Detroit?
I think he brought a winning culture, one, and then two, he's featuring Blake in an amazing way. And then another thing, Reggie Jackson is healthy. He wasn't available last season during that stretch, so it was more Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin. That's the steady dose, and that's what we was getting. But now we're receiving a healthy Reggie Jackson. No turnovers in this game, and just clicking on all cylinders. And he was able to get them over the hump, even with Blake getting ejected. So that's special to see, and I think they're trending in the right direction. 8th spot right now in the Eastern Conference. That's good.
Yeah, 32 points, 8 assists for Reggie. And to your point, we saw Bud change things with Milwaukee and how they handle the ball in terms of, and look what Bledsoe has done. Blake handling the ball more. back to kind of point forward style, Reggie a little bit more off, it seems to have helped both players fit in better.
Yeah, it puts Reggie into a scoring situation where he had 32 and 8 tonight, as you said, no turnovers. It puts him in a place where he's comfortable. He's a kind of a tweener. He's a guy to be a combo guard, and now he can fit his.
Ahead, presented by Dodge. The toughest remaining schedule among Western Conference teams belongs to the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are at home tonight on the home floor. That means a home game for Eric Horn of the Oklahoman, who is with us from OKC here on Game Time. Appreciate the time, Eric. The Thunder signed Markieff Morris, who was bought out by the Wizards. He hasn't played, though, since December because of a neck injury. When will he make his OKC debut?
I feel like it's going to be tonight. He's supposedly been cleared for 2 weeks now after that mysterious injury he had with Washington. Billy Donovan's a guy who he's not shy about throwing guys into the mix whenever they come onto the team. Last year he had Corey Brewer as a guy that they picked up in free agency, and they get him. They don't even get a practice day with him, and they throw him in there on the road against Portland. They've had a couple days to work with Morris, film in the gym. And I'd expect him to get some minutes tonight. I'm not exactly sure how many, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was in there in the first quarter. And
Markieff can shoot it a little bit. Obviously, that helps an Oklahoma City team that has struggled really for years now with the three-point shot, although they did get hot in, late January, early February. How appealing was that particular skill set, and why over the last couple of seasons do you think OKC hasn't sought out a three-point specialist?
It's been tough for them to kind of offer the amount of shots and the role that a three-point guy would be able to get here, with Russell Westbrook being a primary ball handler, Paul George, Carmelo Anthony being a part of the offense the way they've been the last couple of seasons. A guy like Wes Matthews was a guy that the Thunder was interested in, but Wes Matthews saw a greater opportunity in Indiana, to absorb some of those minutes lost when Victor Oladipo went down. As for Markieff Morris being a guy who could contribute with the three-point shooting, that would actually be a bonus for the Thunder at this point. They're getting great three-point shooting from Jeremy Grant, Terrence Ferguson, Dennis Schroeder, guys that they've needed to step up. And since about January 1st, they've been the number 2 team in the league in terms of three-point shooting. They're shooting over 40%. So it's been a really big uptick in the three-point shooting since the turn of the year into 2019.
And Paul George has emerged as an MVP candidate now. How would you describe the evolution in the late game dynamic between Russell Westbrook and PG?
I think there's an acute understanding from Russell Westbrook that Paul George, is the number 1 option on this team right now, not just in the beginning of the games, in the middle of the games, but when the game is on the line. You'll still see Russell Westbrook go into those fits in the fourth quarter where he takes some shots that are probably ill-advised or aren't as good as some ones that he can get for other guys. But more often than not this season, I think you've seen a better Russell Westbrook in terms of his shot discretion in the fourth quarter, in terms of deferring to Paul George. I think you saw the beginning of that when Paul George went to Brooklyn, scored 25 points in Brooklyn. Russell Westbrook sets him up for the game winner. That was really like the beginning of the Paul George MVP march. We've seen other instances this season where Russell Westbrook has set guys up like Alex Abrinas for game-winning shots at the end of the fourth quarter. Those haven't fallen, but it doesn't mean that Russell Westbrook hasn't put in that effort to get guys those shots in crunch time situations.
Third meeting tonight between the Thunder and the Utah Jazz. Eric Horn of the Oklahoman will be courtside to take it in. Thanks for the time, Eric. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys, too. Thanks for having me.
Oh, let's talk Thunder here a little bit. In terms of playoff viability, where would you rank them in terms of threats to the Golden State Warriors, matchup-wise, and what they bring to the table?
I don't really think anybody's a threat to the Golden State Warriors. The only person that's a threat to the Golden State Warriors are themselves. If they come out and they play focused and they move that basketball and they get that game at the tempo that they want to, no one in the West can beat them. But when we talk about the hierarchy of the Western Conference, who is that second or third team or who could meet Golden State in the Western Conference Finals, the Thunder have just as good a shot as anybody else because they have the guys that play defense. When you talk about Grant, they bring in a tough guy like Morris. Schroeder has stepped it up also. Terrence Ferguson, Steven Adams. They have the defensive players to switch screen and rolls, play tough, physical, close out possessions. But they also have 2 MVP caliber basketball players that can close out games for you on the offensive end. When you talk about Russell Westbrook, you talk about Paul George, not a lot of teams have that mix where they can say, hey, we have the defense that can shut you down. They have playoff level defense. They have 2 stars that can win them basketball games. There's a lot of teams that are good up there, teams like Denver, teams like Houston, but I don't think anybody has the collection of overall talent when we talk about defense and stars like OKC.
I think their defense gives them at least a fighting chance. And if they can continue to shoot it the way they have since early January, as Eric talked about, because three-point shooting has been a problem for this team, if they shoot it like they have been, they've got a puncher's chance in a series against Golden State.
And I do think three-point shooting, but I also said to what you guys said, I think their defense. And I think also the one guy I really love is when you can play Dennis Schroeder and Russell Westbrook together with Paul George at the three. I think that gives them a defensive team, but it also gives them a team where they have another ball handler that can make plays. So I said it in preseason, I thought OKC is the team that could challenge the Golden State Warriors, just like B. Wood said, not beat them. And I look at this team right now is they can get on a roll and maybe challenge the Golden State Warriors and maybe be in position the next year to maybe dethrone the Warriors, whatever happens with this team in the summertime as far as the Golden State Warriors. They are missing a couple of three-point shooters. They also miss some experience from Ferguson, but I think he's been playing well of late. But I think it's not this year, maybe next year.
Right. I think he's developed really well.
Yeah. He has done
maybe not ready to be a high-level playoff contributor at this point. And again, we still haven't seen Robertson defensively, for better or worse. They got the Utah Jazz tonight. You notice I keep changing the question about the Warriors thing because the answer is the same every time I ask it. Nobody really.
You're trying.
I'm trying to get you somewhere.
And we got to fill this time on
the minute restriction is going off on Cousins out here and starting. He's going to some more minutes.
Yes. So
that's scary.
It gets even worse. Yeah. The question will change. The answer remains.
I thought they were taking down my minute restrictions here on Game Time.
I didn't know you had a minute restriction.
I think they're taking it down.
No,
I think
they're taking mine down on crunch time.
No, I'm going to film room.
You have unlimited minutes.
We'll flip
on Game
for
Time Live.
We'll flip for it.
A common part of your offense for the last few years.
Is this one of the more satisfying nights for you?
No, it's not. I wasn't out there with him. That's a little man on your shoulder? Is that little man on your shoulder?
Yeah, that's the bad side, too.
We're on the same page.
Yo, you got some deals in my bag, bro.
Kyle, this was one of my best interviews. Thank you.
And helping me and helping our whole team. If you play 2 games and you add 1, that means
3 games.
Yeah, but you said 1 and 3.
If we win,
1 for 3. 1 for 3. 1 for 3 or
yeah,
1 and 2?
That's what I meant.
1 for 3. Oh, 1 for 3.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
USC, baby.
I ain't even go to college that long. With my aggressiveness, came out 37 points, you know. That's always great, just being able to come somewhere new.
I thought I was your lawyer.
Speak to my lawyer.
Go ahead.
A lot of players talk about the game slowing down for them, I guess, as they elevate their game.
Yeah, I'm like Neo now. Oh. Yo, that was good. That was good.
Yeah. Wow.
That's Morpheus.
Two guys obviously like each other, and the fans in Toronto love DeMar DeRozan, and he's expressed his affection for them as well. No indication he wanted to play anywhere else, and everybody there, and of course DeRozan himself was shocked when the trade went down over the summer. Going to be a huge ovation tonight.
I think so, because this is a superstar that wanted to stay in Toronto. And obviously throughout the years when I played, a lot of guys, when you heard you got traded to Toronto, they weren't excited. You have a player, B. Wood and Matt, that really wanted to be there. But I will say this is the first time in a long time I've saw individually it's worked for both players. You know, the headline players in the trade, and also team-wise. I don't think the Spurs obviously is not as good as the Raptors as far as record. But this has helped. I think he's expanded his game. They're 10-1 when he had 9 or more assists. You couldn't have told me watching DeRozan, not that he was a selfish player, but he would be able to facilitate and get double-digit assists in the way he's been passing the basketball and still being able to score. I think it's worked out for both players.
Yeah, this is the rare trade that works out for both teams. Kawhi Leonard obviously didn't want to be a Spur anymore. The Spurs were able to move on from their franchise player, get another player that's in that same element. He's not as good as Kawhi, but he's in the same area. They were able to get an all-star back. Spurs playing good basketball, struggled early on, so it works. It's been working for them because they're playing better now. But more importantly, Toronto stayed on the same path that they were on. They're going for it. Kawhi is definitely an upgrade over DeMar, but we won't know how much of an upgrade until the playoffs, because the Toronto Raptors will be judged on what they do in the playoffs. If they make it to the NBA Finals or win the NBA Finals and re-sign Kawhi, this trade will be deemed as a success. If they do not make it to the NBA Finals, well, then a lot of people will be looking at why did we trade DeMar DeRozan.
Eastern Conference Finals not a success, you think?
They made it to the Eastern Conference Finals before.
Yeah.
When you trade the best player probably in Toronto Raptors history, DeMar DeRozan. When you get rid of the best coach in Toronto Raptors history, now you're looking at making significant strides forward and doing things that haven't been done in Toronto's history. They've done the Eastern Conference Finals. For this year to be a success after trading DeMar DeRozan, has to be NBA Finals.
I totally agree. And I think, obviously, it's going to be really tough if you don't get the Eastern Conference Finals and you lose Kawhi.
Right.
That could be very tough for the Toronto Raptors organization.
And yet I would still argue it was the right move to make last summer because it feels like they had plateaued, and I think that's probably where their minds were at as well.
It's different, though, because you felt like you plateaued when LeBron...
In the LeBron era.
When LeBron was in the East.
That's what I say.
Now that LeBron was gone, there's no telling how far that team could have been. We'll never know. And Lowry and DeRozan, they were a very formidable team, a very formidable duo, and best of friends, as you can see in that clip. Those guys had a lot of fun together.
And with all the high-end competition in the Eastern Conference, as you said, there's just no way to know if that team would have been good enough to get out of the East anyway. All right, later on